Kain is deified. The clans tell tales of him. Few know the truth.
Hey guys, back again with yet another video. Now, if anyone had told me that I would be doing a review for Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 in 2024, I'd assume that they probably spend most of their free time in a nice room with padded walls. Yet somehow, here we are. Now, thanks to very passionate fans of the series, we finally can play Soul Reaver 1 and 2 with glorious updated graphics and character models. Long-term fans of the series probably already know what I have to say about the game, as I am one of them. The game is great. The story, great. The mechanics, great. The visuals, great. Voice acting, beyond reproach. The last time I played Soul Reaver 1 was some 15 years ago on a PSP, and I had forgotten almost everything about the game until now. I gotta say, for a game that was designed back in 1999, it accomplishes some impressive things, especially with the limitations of the era in which it was made. So naturally, first let's take a look at the remaster. Just by having a short look at this graphics comparison between the old version and the new version of the game, we can see just how big of an improvement the remaster has made when it comes to the visuals. And not only are the textures redone, but they also put in some effort to animate parts of the characters that were not animated previously. For example, when Kain speaks, we can see that his mouth actually moves, as opposed to the original version where his head is basically just a Minecraft block. Kain's Soul Reaver is no longer just a zigzag cutout made out of cardboard, but actually looks like a curvy sword. And also, if we take a closer look at the wall textures, we can also see just how much more detailed they are. However, there were a few misses here and there, nothing too big of an issue, but there were some later game areas in which they forgot to do like one wall or a piece of a wall, stuff like that. Nothing that you would actually notice without actually actively looking for it. All in all, I'm very happy with the way the remaster was handled. Now let's take a look at some of the mechanics within the game itself. At first it seems that you cannot do much except fight enemies, jump, glide and move blocks, but as you progress through the game, it gives you so many more tools which you will be required to know how to use in order to progress. And again, I am saying this as someone who forgot almost everything about Soul Reaver 1. At first it really didn't seem like there was much to it, but by the time I reached the end I was in disbelief that they could do so much given the limitations of the technology back in that day. And every mechanic is thought out in great detail. Every skill you obtain has some interaction with others when it comes to puzzle solving, and not only that. For example, if you impale a vampire and leave the weapon in them, they will not respawn if you do not consume their soul. You can use puzzle blocks and flip them on your enemies, crushing them easily, and then you can move on with doing the puzzle. You can also use torches to light enemies on fire, after which the torch goes out, but can be reignited at any other source of fire. And there are many other examples of such ingenuity when it comes to game design. Now, Soul Reaver was among the first games to introduce swimming, a thing that was hardly imaginable back then. Not only does it introduce swimming, it uses it as part of solving puzzles and finding secrets. And next we have the ability to lift blocks or stacking them on top of each other. Again, a new mechanic in 1999 which might seem mundane today, but it was revolutionary back then. Not to mention shifting between the spectral and material realms. Every part of the map is actually two maps, and you need to remember this mechanic in order to progress through the game, because some inaccessible areas in the material realm become accessible in the spectral realm, and vice versa. Sometimes, in order to solve a puzzle, you have to keep switching between the two. And then we have the telekinetic blast. At first, you may feel that it's mostly useful to cheese combat, but the game tries to teach you at the start that it is also used to move objects around or break a glass to reveal hidden pathways. And last, but certainly not least, in the beginning we get the Soul Reaver itself in the early stages of the game, and this is the only weapon that is capable of destroying enemies in an instant. All these mechanics and more you unlock by defeating bosses in the game, which in this case are Kain's lieutenants, your former brethren. Once mighty vampires, now creatures mutated beyond recognition, each with their own unique gift which you will unlock after defeating them on your journey to confront Kain, the presumed villain of the game. Now I have to cross over a little bit into Soul Reaver 2 and Defiance as well, for a bit to explain another impressive thing to me. Now, we have already established that Raziel has to unlock new skills by defeating bosses, right? Well, in most games, when you start a sequel, there is an event that somehow takes all of your abilities away, forcing you to unlock them again in the sequel, so that you would have that feeling of progression yet again. And this is not what happens in the Legacy of Kain series. From Soul Reaver 1 to Defiance, Raziel just keeps unlocking more abilities and getting more powerful, which eventually ties in with the story and the reasons why Raziel has to keep getting stronger. The fact that the character progression and the story are so close-knit also struck me as quite impressive. And this brings me to the story. The Legacy of Kain series story and plots are intricate and never what they seem. The first thing to bear in mind is that Soul Reaver is not the first, but the second entry in the series, with the first being Legacy of Kain Blood Omen from 1996. That game features Kain as the main character and the events that lead to him becoming a vampire and afterwards. Soul Reaver introduces a new protagonist, Raziel, who was apparently betrayed by Kain because of his jealousy of Raziel's new evolution, namely sprouting wings. But things are never as they seem in these games. The game will have you questioning who is the villain and what is actually going on, as there are allusions early on that Raziel does not yet have the full picture of what is actually taking place. Now, if you're new to this series, the games will have you go on a coaster ride of discovery of dark secrets, lore, and an entirely new race in the world of Nosgoth, which plays a key role in the struggle of humans, vampires, and the Elder God, former adversaries of the vampires, the Hilden. Why am I telling you this here when I'm supposed to talk about Soul Reaver 1 only? Well, it's because I want anyone who is new to the franchise to be aware of the story and that it goes a lot deeper than a simple revenge plot and that there is a lot more to discover. The originality of the storyline is a thing to behold, and I truly wish to see its continuation in the future, since Defiance does provide an ending, but also leaves the door open to future sequels. And next we have the voice acting, which I would never forgive myself if I didn't include it when talking about these games. Michael Bell, Tony Jay, and Simon Templeman bring their respective characters, Raziel, the Elder God, and Kain, to life in a spectacular manner. Voice casting for these games was taken rather seriously, so Eidos hired veteran stage actors for these roles. And you can tell that these are professionals. Each character feels unique and alive, with their own personality and mood. Raziel, the betrayed and broken hero of his own story, displaying feelings of moral superiority when interacting with most other characters, Kain especially. The Elder God, always self-assured, imposing, and arrogant. And then we have Kain, whom I have singled out simply because he's my personal favorite. The gravitas of Simon Templeman's voice colors Kain as a unique and unforgettable character to me. The arrogance in his voice, the authoritative manner in which he carries himself, while also leaving little hints that he may not be who he was as a young vampire, and that there may be more to what he is doing than simply vying for power. Michael Bell and Simon Templeman's exchanges over the course of the series are a thing of legend in my opinion. This is some of the best voice acting in gaming in general. Now, I couldn't say what the best acting ever was, but I can claim that this is among the best at the very least. The use of elevated prose in their dialogue makes the world and the people in it feel old and ancient, while also providing the player with a feeling of the gravity of the events that are unfolding. The use of such ornate language was a brilliant choice in my opinion for the series, and I believe one of the reasons why it feels so timeless. So I thought maybe we could take a moment now and have a listen to a short exchange between Kain and Raziel and how good the voice acting really is.
Raziel,
Kain!
the Abyss has been unkind.
I am your creation, Kain. Now, as before, you criticize your own work. What have you done with my clan, degenerate? You have no right.
What I have made, I can also destroy, child.
Damn you, Kain! You are not God! This act of genocide is unconscionable!
Conscience? You dare to speak to me of conscience? Only when you have felt the full gravity of choice should you dare question my judgment. Your lifespan is a flicker compared to the mass of doubt and regret that I have borne since Mortanius first turned me from the light. To know that the fate of the world hangs dependent on the advisedness of my every deed? Can you even begin to conceive what action you would take in my position?
I would choose integrity, Kain.
Look around you, Raziel. See what has become of our empire. Witness the end of an age. The clans scattered to the corners of Nosgoth. This place has outlasted its usefulness. As have you.
The Soul Reaver, Kain's ancient blade, older than any of us and 1,000 times more deadly. The legends claimed that the blade was possessed and thrived by devouring the souls of its victims. For all our bravado, we knew what it meant when Kain drew the Soul Reaver in anger. It meant you were dead.
After seeing this, if you still don't believe me that this is some of the best acting in gaming, well, I don't know what to tell you. Except that you're absolutely wrong. Now, I'm just kidding here, but I honestly do believe that this is some of the most spectacular acting ever. And now let's move on to the conclusion. Except for a few minor issues that I noticed, which I also mentioned, regarding the textures on some walls not being done, that's pretty much all the complaints I have. You can tell that this game was really done by true fans of the series with much care and preparation. And one of the names is certainly familiar to long-standing fans of the series. Of course, I'm talking about Rena Audron. She is the director of the remasters and took great care to balance modernizing the game with staying faithful to the originals. And what an amazing job she did. In the end, all I have to say about Soul Reaver 1 is thank you Rena, Crystal Dynamics and Aspyr for letting me experience a much beloved franchise yet again with new visuals and familiar faces. Also, a thank you to Amy Hennig, who wrote and directed the original games, and I sincerely hope that this was only the beginning of the revival of a long-dormant franchise, and that we will eventually get Legacy of Kain Defiance Remastered, as well as Blood Omen 1 and 2, and a sequel or sequels afterwards. The lands of Nosgoth are rich with lore and stories to tell, and I for one hope to hear them all. And if you never played any of the Legacy of Kain games, I strongly recommend you give them a try. And while the level design may feel a bit outdated in modern times, I promise you, you will not regret playing this game or any of the other Legacy of Kain games. Now, I could stay here and ramble on about everything that I love about the Legacy of Kain series, but then it would turn into a multiple hour long video essay, and since this is a review, I tried to keep it brief, short and to the point, and I hope that you all enjoyed. And I also hope that if you haven't tried the game yet, I sincerely hope you do give it a shot, you will not regret it, and I also hope to see your impressions and opinions down in the comments below. And also, if you liked this video, please like, share and subscribe, the usual stuff, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Until then, bye!
Cast him in.
Tumbling, burning with white-hot fire, I plunged into the depths of the abyss. Unspeakable pain, relentless agony. Time ceased to exist. Only this torture and a deepening hatred of the hypocrisy that damned me to this hell. An eternity passed, and my torment receded, bringing me back from the precipice of madness. The descent had destroyed me, and yet I lived.